Welcome to Midnight Narratives. I travel a lot. Rural towns, alpine regions, forgotten corners of Australia, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that public toilets are creepy. So I started digging. What I found was worse than I imagined. These are 100% true stories of haunted and bizarre happenings in public toilets across Australia. Verified, documented, and deeply unsettling. Midnight Narratives Episode 1, The Cubicle That Screamed, Arundel Asylum, Victoria. In the heart of Victoria's gold country, perched on a hill overlooking the town of Ararat, sits one of Australia's most infamous abandoned psychiatric hospitals, Arundel Asylum. Built in 1865, it housed over 13,000 patients during its operation, many of whom never left. The asylum was known for its brutal treatments, electroshock therapy, lobotomies, and isolation cells. But one part of the building has earned a reputation that even seasoned ghost hunters refuse to investigate alone: the East Wing toilet block.
It started with a cleaner. In 1997, a woman named Margaret was hired to help maintain the grounds after the asylum was decommissioned. She was told to avoid the East Wing unless absolutely necessary. But one afternoon, she was asked to check a report of vandalism in the old toilet block. The moment she stepped inside, she felt it, an oppressive weight in the air, like walking into a room filled with grief. The toilets were old, porcelain cracked, mirrors fogged with age, graffiti scrawled across the stall doors. But one cubicle stood out. It was pristine. No graffiti, no dust. The door was shut, and from inside she heard breathing, slow, labored breathing. She knocked. No response. She pushed the door. It was locked. Then came the scream. It wasn't human. It was guttural, raw, like someone being tortured. Margaret ran. She never returned to the East Wing again. Over the years, others reported similar experiences. Paranormal investigators captured audio recordings of screams, whispers, and the sound of someone sobbing. One team claimed the cubicle was a spiritual echo chamber, a place where trauma had imprinted itself so deeply that it replayed like a broken record. Historical records reveal that in 1943, a patient named Elsie was subjected to repeated electroshock therapy in that wing. She died during a session, her body found slumped in the toilet stall, eyes open, mouth frozen in a scream. Today, the cubicle remains locked. No one knows how. The hinges are rusted, the lock broken, but the door never opens. And every few weeks, someone hears it, the scream. Episode 2, The Mirror in the Arcade, Adelaide Arcade, South Australia. Adelaide Arcade is one of the oldest shopping arcades in Australia, built in 1885. It's elegant, Victorian, and bustling with tourists and locals, but beneath its polished tiles and boutique storefronts lies a darker history, one that centers around a small, rarely discussed corner of the building, the public toilets near the back stairwell. In 1902, a man named Francis Clooney worked as the arcade's caretaker. He was well-liked, meticulous, and lived in a small room above the arcade. One stormy night, Francis went to check on a faulty generator in the basement. He never came back. The next morning, his body was found mangled in the machinery, his head crushed, his limbs twisted unnaturally. The coroner ruled it an accident. But rumors swirled. Some said he'd been pushed. Others claimed the machine had started on its own. The arcade continued operating, but strange things began happening. Lights flickered, doors slammed, and most notably, people began reporting odd experiences in the toilets near the stairwell, where Francis had often cleaned late at night. In 2003, a woman named Talia was shopping with her mother. She ducked into the arcade toilets alone. The space was clean, quiet, and empty. She washed her hands and glanced up at the mirror. Her reflection stared back, but something was off. Her face was normal, but her eyes were wrong. They were wide, unblinking, and filled with panic. Then her reflection blinked. She hadn't. She froze. The reflection smiled, just slightly, and then returned to normal. Talia ran out, pale and shaking. Her mother thought she was overreacting until 2 weeks later, another woman reported the same thing. A reflection that moved independently, a smile that didn't belong. Security footage showed nothing unusual, but when a paranormal team visited in 2005, they brought thermal cameras and EMF detectors. In the toilet block, the temperature dropped by 8 degrees. One camera caught a brief flash of light in the mirror, like a face leaning in, then vanishing. The team researched the arcade's history and found something chilling. Francis Clooney's room had been directly above the toilet block. He'd used that mirror daily, and in his journal, preserved by the Historical Society, he'd written about seeing things in the glass. Sometimes I see myself smiling when I'm not, he wrote. Sometimes I see someone else. Today, the toilets remain open. Most people use them without incident. But every few months, someone reports the same thing, a reflection that doesn't match, a blink that comes too late, a smile that feels wrong. The arcade has embraced its haunted reputation. Ghost tours pass through weekly, but few mention the toilets. It's too personal, too intimate, and too easy to dismiss. Until it happens to you. Episode 3, The Slashed Woman, Yonge and Jackson Hotel, Melbourne, Victoria. The Yonge and Jackson Hotel sits at the corner of Flinders and Swanston Streets in Melbourne, a historic pub known for its famous painting of Chloe, its proximity to Flinders Street Station, and its long-standing reputation for strange occurrences. But few know about the women's toilet on the second floor, and the story that's been whispered among staff for decades. In 1981, a tourist named Elaine checked into the hotel for a weekend stay. She was traveling alone, exploring Melbourne's art galleries and historic buildings. On her second night, she went upstairs to use the restroom. It was late, just past midnight, and the pub was closing. The hallway was quiet, the lights dimmed. She entered the toilet block and found it empty. As she washed her hands, she glanced up at the mirror. Behind her, in the reflection, stood a woman, pale, elegant, dressed in a 1940s style coat. Her hair was curled, her lipstick perfect. Elaine turned around. No one was there. She looked back at the mirror. The woman was still there, but now her head was tilted and her mouth was open. Blood poured from her neck, staining her coat. Elaine screamed and ran. Security was called. They found nothing, but when they reviewed the footage from the hallway, they saw Elaine enter the toilet block, and then seconds later, the lights flickered. A shadow passed across the frosted glass door. No one else had entered. The hotel manager, who'd worked there for over 20 years, pulled Elaine aside. He told her she wasn't the first. Staff had reported seeing a woman in the mirror for decades. Always the same, elegant, silent, and then suddenly bleeding. Some believed she was a former patron who'd been murdered nearby in the 1940s. Others thought she was connected to the painting of Chloe, though the timelines didn't match. In 1997, a psychic medium visited the hotel as part of a paranormal documentary. She refused to enter the toilet block. "There's something wrong with the mirror," she said. "It's not a reflection, it's a window." The hotel replaced the mirror in 2001. The sightings stopped for a while, but in 2015, a bartender reported seeing the woman again. This time, she was standing in the hallway, staring at the door to the toilet block. Her neck was intact. Her eyes were hollow. Today, the mirror is still there. Most patrons use the toilets without incident, but every few years, someone sees her, and when they do, it's always the same. A woman who looks too perfect, too still, and then, just for a moment, bleeds. Episode 4, The Quarantine Cubicle. North Head Quarantine Station, Sydney, New South Wales. North Head Quarantine Station is perched on the cliffs above Sydney Harbour, a place where thousands of immigrants were once held in isolation, many of them dying from diseases like smallpox, Spanish flu, and bubonic plague. The site is now a heritage-listed tourist destination with guided tours, restored buildings, and preserved artifacts. But one building remains largely untouched, the toilet block near the old hospital ward. In 1919, during the height of the Spanish flu pandemic, a group of patients were quarantined in the hospital. One of them, a young man named Thomas, was placed in isolation after developing a high fever and violent coughing fits. He was moved to a small room adjacent to the toilet block. Within days, he was dead. Staff began reporting strange sounds from the toilets, coughing, whispers, the sound of someone vomiting, but the block was empty. One nurse claimed she saw a man in a hospital gown standing in the stall, staring at the wall. When she approached, he vanished. In 2008, a group of university students visited the site as part of a history project. One of them, Liam, went to use the toilet block alone. He entered a stall, locked the door, and sat down. Then he heard it coughing. Not from outside, but from the next stall. He called out. No response. He looked under the divider, no feet. The coughing continued. Then came a whisper. Don't breathe. Liam ran. He refused to return to the site. Paranormal investigators have recorded EVPs in the toilet block. Low voices, coughing, and the phrase, "I'm not ready." Thermal cameras show cold spots in the stalls, and motion sensors have triggered without explanation. The quarantine station embraces its haunted reputation, but the toilet block is rarely mentioned. It's too intimate, too visceral, and too real. The visitors today report the same things: coughing when no one's there, locked doors that open on their own, and a feeling deep, primal, that they're not alone. Episode 5, The Red Dust Rest Stop, Nullarbor Plain, Western Australia. In the vast emptiness of the Nullarbor, where the horizon stretches endlessly and the red dust swallows sound, there's a rest stop that truckers avoid after dark. It's marked only by a faded sign and a concrete toilet block, built in the 1980s to serve long-haul drivers. But something happened there, something that still echoes. In 1994, a driver named Mick pulled in around 2 a.m. He was exhausted, running low on fuel, and hadn't seen another vehicle in hours. The toilet block was silent. He stepped inside, relieved himself, and then heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, circling the building. He called out, no answer. He stepped outside, no one, but the footsteps continued, now behind him. He turned, nothing. Then he saw them, prints in the red dust. Bare feet, leading away from the block, then vanishing. Mick drove off, shaken. He later learned that the rest stop was built near the site of a colonial-era massacre. In the 1860s, a group of Aboriginal people were killed by settlers near a waterhole. The site was later bulldozed to make way for the highway. Since then, dozens of drivers have reported strange phenomena: footsteps, whispers, and the sound of crying. One driver claimed he saw a woman standing in the doorway of the toilet block, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She vanished when he approached. The rest stop still exists, but locals say if you stop there after midnight, don't use the toilets, just keep driving. Episode 6, The Locked Stall by Fremantle Prison, Western Australia. Fremantle Prison is a towering limestone fortress that once housed some of Australia's most dangerous criminals. It's now a museum and tourist attraction with guided tours through its cells, yards, and gallows. But one part of the prison is rarely shown: the old toilet block near the solitary confinement wing. In 1878, a prisoner named Alan was placed in solitary after attacking a guard. He was known for his violent outbursts and erratic behavior. One night, he was found dead in the toilet block, his head submerged in the bowl, his body contorted. The coroner ruled it suicide, but guards whispered otherwise. They said the door had been locked from the outside, that Alan had screamed for hours before falling silent, that the lights had flickered and the temperature had dropped. After the prison closed in 1991, staff began reporting strange occurrences. The toilet stall where Alan died would lock itself, lights would fail, and visitors claimed to hear someone whispering from inside the stall, "Let me out." In 2005, a paranormal team investigated. They placed motion sensors and audio recorders in the block at 2:13 a.m. The sensor triggered. The audio captured a voice, low, desperate, "I didn't do it." The stall remains locked. No one can open it. The hinges are rusted, the lock broken. But every few weeks, someone hears it, the whisper, and the sound of water running when no one's inside. Episode 7, The Girl in the Drain, Hobart, Tasmania. In the heart of Hobart, near the Old Wharf District, there's a public toilet tucked behind a row of shops. It's clean, modern, and mostly ignored. But in 2011, a plumber named Darren was called to fix a drainage issue. What he found changed him. The blockage was deep, far below the surface. As he worked, he heard something, a voice, faint, childlike. "Help me." He froze. The voice came again. "I'm down here." He opened the drain cover, nothing. But the voice continued. He called the police. They searched the pipes. No one was there. Later, Darren learned that in 1983, a girl named Emily had gone missing near the wharf. Her body was never found. Some believed she'd fallen into the storm drain system and drowned. Since Darren's report, others have heard the voice, always the same, "Help me." Some claim to see a small hand reaching from the drain. Others say the toilets flush on their own and the mirrors fog up with the words, "I'm still here." The city denies any paranormal activity, but the drain remains sealed and the voice, according to Darren, still calls out, especially during storms.